I rank things here with nude eyes. More of these equals to more disturbing medieval treatments. Previously I had made a video about parasites, so it is fitting that I mention them again in medieval terms. What our ancestors thought about these wriggling horrors and how did they fight them? Well, they were also disgusted by these things and thought that various parasites were generated from corrupt matter inside our bodies. Also, pretty much everybody back then were riddled with parasites, especially rich folks. For example, after archaeologists dug remains of friars, they found out that these religious men were infested with roundworms and whipworms. Even though generally friars were cleaner, they still used their own feces to enhance the soil where they grew their food. One way to stop or get rid of unwanted parasites was to use wormwood, a bitter and a little bit toxic plant. During the medieval ages, many doctors started experimenting with various concoctions that were considered to be anesthetic. One such anesthetic was dwale, a popular potion which was made out of vinegar, bile, lettuce and opium, which is probably one of the ingredients who did the most work. But that's not all ingredients. We forgot to mention all the poisonous ones. For example, brine, which induces vomiting and can kill. Then there's henbane, which has a very peculiar Latin name and causes hallucinations plus occasional death, and finally, the final ingredient is hemlock, which is so toxic that just 8 leaves is enough to remove you from your misery for eternity. To check this vileness easier, a wine was provided. The poor peasant was literally out of his mind after such elixir. Probably still better than watching your own gangrenous leg being removed without any potion. I don't know about you, but before researching the subject I never knew that vultures lived in Europe. But that's just me, I'm dumb. Anyway, medieval people for some reason saw vultures as a great addition to their medical prowess. According to wise men, the vulture had to be killed within 1 hour of its capture and preferably killed by a surprise, so it doesn't eat its own brain. Brain which has invaluable effect of healing headaches or other head problems. Vulture heart wrapped in wolf's skin healed demonic possessions. Liver healed seizures and the grounded beak healed cancer. It also needed an incantation, otherwise the priest would not activate his healing spell. Thankfully, as far as I know, these parts were used as ointment and were not shoved into patient's mouth. You know what was shoved into the mouth though? Urine. Medieval doctors gargled the shit in order to find out if you have some problems. Apart from the taste, doctors also had a chart to determine the color of the urine. For example, reddish gold samples signified good digestion, while flasks of a very dark liquid suggest death. They also looked into the texture. For example, a big foam meant that there is a lung problem, small specks of sediment meant arthritis, and blood inside urine also meant that there was a broken vessel or a kidney problem. But the doctors were not the only ones swilling piss in their mouths. Many people drank their own urine to whiten their teeth. There is some reasoning behind it, because urine contains ammonia, which is a bleaching agent. There is a saying, "Stop blowing smoke up my ass." Once tobacco reached Europe from Native Americans, it was quickly adopted to treat various ailments like cancer, headaches, respiratory problems, stomach cramps, gout, intestinal worms, and female diseases. Also, a physician, Richard Mead, suggested to blow smoke to resuscitate victims of drowning. Imagine waking up coughing up water, looking down and seeing Richard's face between your legs blowing smoke up your ass. By the way, this practice continued up until 18th century when they discovered that nicotine is bad for the heart. When I was researching disgusting medical remedies from medieval times, I didn't know that this medicine is even still available today. In medieval times, for sore throat, they would make snail syrup. First, they gathered garden snails, removed their shells, cut them up, and mixed them with sugar. I really hope they didn't mix this one. Then they would extract dissolved sugar mucus. The bloodletting practice was revived in medieval times when people began to look back and read Galen's work. Galen was basically Nikola Tesla of medicine in ancient world. So, what benefit would a bunch of Gerudo Medicinalis leeches accomplish? Well, according to Galen, humans had 4 mechanisms: black bile, yellow bile, blood and phlegm. There was belief that blood needed to be extracted, otherwise it would become stagnant. Also, they believed that leeches would suck out the diseases. Okay, no maggots. What use did they had? Simple. Eating necrotic tissue. This type of healing is called maggot therapy. I suggest you to skip looking at the images on Google. It seems that fly larvae somehow remove necrotic tissue many times more precisely than a normal surgical operation. Also, they don't have teeth, but they vomit special enzymes which liquefy necrotic tissue. Then they simply slurp up the cocktail. Not only that, but they also have antimicrobial properties. If you are thinking, why these maggots leave good and healthy tissue alone? It all depends on species. For example, good species are of Lucilia sericata fly. On the other hand, bad species which feed on live tissue are, for example, screw flies. So I suppose this was the most advanced type of healing in medieval ages, since it is still used today. What was not advanced was smearing excrements on wounds or in the mouth. I will ask you a strange question. Do you know what is a Greek white? No? Well, you shouldn't, but I will help you out with that. If you ever stumbled upon a white dog poop, this happens when it becomes old. Well, ancient people mixed that white stuff with honey and used it as a medicine for sore throat. You're welcome. Basically, most of animal dung was used. Mice droppings for elimination of intestinal worms, sheep for liver problems, blackbird dung along with vinegar was used to treat freckles, pigeon dung helped reduce skin redness, headaches, vertigo, gout and other conditions. You know what? This sounds the best. Give me 1 ounce. No, make 2 ounces because I have to bring some poop to the kids. There was a saying, a night with Venus and a lifetime with Mercury. Mercury was used as a medicine for various ailments, especially for syphilis, hence the quote. Of course, people back then didn't know that mercury was dangerous. It actually looked shiny and quite mystifying. A liquid metal. People who were treated with mercury lost teeth, developed tremors, psychosis, bad kidneys, vision problems and more. I think few places where mercury actually worked was for constipation, since the metal was super heavy and it unclogged the pipes. Also, mercury quite possibly has antibacterial properties. You are a soldier trying to take enemy castle. You are brave and pretty much storm its walls, but unfortunately you are welcomed with flaming arrows, burning torches and various hot liquids. Thankfully, after the battle, your burned ass is found by a respected physician who will treat you proper. You lie on your back waiting for the magical treatment, but to your horror, you see the doctor, or should I say barber surgeon, coming up to you with a scalding hot oil. That bastard pours the stuff on already burned wounds because back then it was believed that such stuff will cleanse the burn and help it heal. It didn't help. Some physicians used wine, which actually was working way better because 1. It is not a hot oil, and 2. It is a disinfectant. More than 50% of people at their old age will most likely have cataracts. What are cataracts and should I be afraid? A cataract is when lens part of the eye gets cloudy. It depends on the severity of cloudiness, but this pretty much means that the person with such affliction becomes blind. Thankfully, there is a very old procedure, maybe a few thousand years old, which involves the removal of the clouded lens. It involves a sharp and long object or a needle which is inserted into the eye and carefully, the clouded lens is pushed back into the eyeball, allowing light to enter the eye. I also read somewhere that sometimes they would use a hollow tube to suck lens out. Losing lens cleared vision, however, everything was super out of focus. Still better than seeing a white cloud all the time. Also, even in medieval times, various lenses and glasses were already in use, which would help with the bad focus thing. This was one of the most painful procedures out there. How do you remove a bladder or kidney stone? Well, they would cut a hole between butthole and genitals. Also, these were the tools. These procedures were so painful that it often required 4 strong men to restrain the patient, but it was necessary because other option was simply death. Later, a new groundbreaking device called, this word which I am not even trying to pronounce, was invented, which was used to break down stones into smaller pieces. It works by grabbing the stone and using a drill in the center. It was very safe with only 7 deaths in 307 operations, around 2%, while the old lobotomy methods get 1000 deaths in 5000 operations, 18%. Since people back in the day were quite physical, they often ended up with broken bones. Patients were fixed by so-called bone setters, which would try their best to rearrange bones into place. Then a cast was made with mixture of egg whites, flour and animal fats, pretty much how I cook my pancakes. Once healed, some bone setters were not happy with the results and would re-break the bone and do it again. Before there was surgeons and doctors, there were barbers. It made sense. They had sharp tools and cut stuff off, like for example hair. Barber apprentices usually started at age of 13 and studied under their master for 7 years. These barbers were not complete savages, they knew where are the arteries and basic human anatomy. However, back in the day, Arabian doctors were way more advanced. There is a story how, during a crusade, an Arab doctor was asked to help one injured knight and one mentally slow woman. Well, he drained knight's abscess which was on the leg, dressed the wound with various herbs. Also, he placed mentally ill woman on a diet. Not sure if this one worked though. Anyway, one European physician came to know about this man's way of healing and said that this guy knows nothing about treatments. He asked to bring a strong knight with a sharp axe. The axe knight came and cut the leg of the knight which had a simple abscess on his leg. The bone marrow flowed out and patient died. European doctor was like, "What's next? Who's the next patient? Oh, that crazy woman." He suddenly took a razor, made a deep cross-shaped incision on the head of the woman, then opened the skin-revealing skull and rubbed salt in. She died. The Arabian physician was shook and returned home. Anyway, amputations were very deadly and the bleeding was often stopped by burning the wound. Drilling holes in human skulls has to be one of the oldest surgery procedures out there, with evidence from 10,000 years ago. The main goal of such treatment is to remove piece of skull in order to expose dura mater, which is a layer between skull bone and the brain. But why? Well, there were legit reasons and rubbish reasons. Legit ones would relieve pressure from traumatic head injuries, allowing blood to escape through a hole in the skull. Not so legit reasons would be to release evil spirits which were trapped in the head. But I think drilling a hole in a misbehaving person's head definitely made him a little bit more obedient. Also, sometimes holes were covered with metal or simply left as it is, only closed by the skin. Now for level 10 medical treatment, which I found to be the most disturbing. It is not a surgery, but simply a consumable. In ancient times, people believed that consumption of parts of the human body can heal or prevent diseases. For example, they used Egyptian mummies as medicine. They would ground up the bodies and sell it in a powdered form to heal various ailments, also claimed its powers as an aphrodisiac. People are weird. Ancestors also used criminal and gladiator blood to heal epilepsy. China was next level, because people there even offered their own flesh for their dying relatives. They would provide it by swiftly cutting it from either the thigh or upper arm. Also, there was a belief in China that a boiled child's heart will prolong one's life, so you can imagine how that went. Also, this practice even happened in the 1970s, so what the hell, China?